Hello and welcome to episode 360. That's a good number of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill, and Jason's been excited all week, so I'm going to let him talk about. We're going to start off talking about the Steelers' new quarterback room.
Yeah, let's roll, right?
Yeah,
As you know, if you've listened to our show, which I assume most of the people listening are our normal listeners, we have not been happy with Trubisky, Pickett. You were a little bit bigger fan of Mason than I was. Old Big Ben. It's been a while. And going into this season, I was just nervous about having to I don't know if the combination of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, given, their age and value and the way they've been the last few years is the same, but it feels like we made moves. We recognized that what we were doing wasn't working. Let's try something new, and they went big with their new, right?
yeah. And I think a lot of that came from impatience from ownership too.
Yeah. And, it's been coming out, and I know this happens anytime a player leaves, but the attitude of Kenny Pickett, besides the lack of production on the field, seems like it was a big reason he's gone. Along with Deontay Johnson, that philosophy of we want people that want to be here, we don't want hostages.
Yep.
And on Pickett's part, it's sort of weird, right? Because there was a guy coming in for 1 year who was 35 years old and seemed like he was on the tail end of his career in Russell Wilson. And you were going to be, you were given, at least on the surface, you were giving a chance to win that job, right?
On the surface, but probably not.
Probably
but
not.
Yeah,
I mean, but you chose to go, in a trade to Philadelphia where you're backing up a $50 million a year Jalen Hurts. like, where you have no chance of getting on the field outside of injury.
well, that
obviously.
wasn't his choice. I mean, they traded him.
Yeah. But he also pushed for the trade as soon as Russell Wilson was brought
Yeah.
on, and you were like, we're not giving you the first team reps. Like, you're going to have to earn them. He didn't want to earn them. But Justin Fields, 25, clearly has some elite skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
He averages the second most rushing yards per quarterback in the entire NFL after Lamar Jackson. He's got a cannon for an arm. The knock on him has been slow processing. And, the Bears organization, up until this last year, has not put a team around him. Has not given him weapons, not get, all the things you want to go with. So,
From three coaches.
and three coaches. And it feels like the flyer they took on him, which the Steelers gave up a conditional fourth round pick in 2025 that only is a fourth rounder if he plays 51% of the snaps. And other than that, you get you get Justin Fields for essentially a sixth round pick. And that just seems like an absolute steal.
Yeah, you absolutely have to take that. And as was signing Russell Wilson for $1 million, whatever it was.
$1.2 million, yeah. So their quarterback, it's costing them less than $4 million a year at the quarterback position, which means they can really go crazy and beef up all the other areas. I mean, they added Patrick Queen, who was another big signing. And we'll get to all that. We're going to get to all the free agent moves we liked. But, I mean, the Steelers, for once, I think they've done a really nice job in free agency. They didn't
All right,
spend
let's play a game. Let's play a game, Jason.
Okay.
Look in your crystal ball.
All right.
Where's Kenny Pickett entering the 2028 season?
Manager at Trader Joe's.
Okay, so he's not in the NFL.
No.
Okay.
I mean,
Where's Justin Fields?
I'm,
Yeah, your crystal ball. You can be wrong.
I can be wrong. I'm going to say he's the Pittsburgh Steelers starter. I think you have a very raw. You have a guy that everybody agreed was a top 10 or top 5 pick when he came out. He's 25, like you said. I think the Steelers are going to. They have a quarterback coach. You have Arthur Smith. You have Russell Wilson, and I think they are going to use this year to really get Justin Fields lots of practice reps, lots of film study. They're going to try to get everything they can out of him, and he seems like, based on his quotes, based on the way his teammates love him, he's a hardworking dude. He loves football. He's got the right attitude. So that's what I'm hoping.
Okay. So I know that what the Steelers did is probably your favorite free agent thing. But what's another free agent signing that you really, really liked?
That I really liked. I like the safety the Bengals got from the Ravens, Stone. It was an area of need for the Bengals. The Bengals are a really good football team. And I think it was a nice, easy, again, just like with Steelers taking Patrick Queen away from the Ravens, the Bengals took a starting safety away from the Ravens, and just a very solid player in a position of need.
Okay.
I want
Did
to
you like
say
Kirk Cousins going to the Falcons?
that's the one I was going to talk about next. Much like the Steelers with Russell Wilson. Is that a bird in the background?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'm sitting outside.
Yeah. Kirk Cousins is an improvement on what you had, right? There's no question about that.
Mm-hmm.
He's better than Desmond Ridder, who you traded away. He's better than Marcus Mariota. And you've invested all these first-round picks in Bijan and Kyle Pitts and Drake London. And you need to find out what those guys are and what you have. And you have an 81-year-old owner that doesn't want to be a bottom dweller for another season. But at the same time, Kirk Cousins has never really, taken anybody to a playoff victory. So it's hard to say,
Okay.
It's a lot of money for a 35-year-old quarterback coming off a knee surgery.
I saw a stat they're going to play 11 of their games in a dome next year. So they're thinking this is going to be a huge breakout year for Drake London and Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts is the one. I mean, from a fantasy perspective, everybody thought this is the next Travis Kelce. This is the next big thing, and he just has not put up numbers. When you watch the games, he is quite often open. They just don't get him the ball. So I think one of the storylines, though, is, the Eagles traded for Pickett. The Jaguars, who, again, much like the Eagles, have a young quarterback under a long-term contract, they traded for Mac Jones. The Steelers brought in, the Steelers situation is a little bit different because I feel like their quarterback room is less stable, but just, I guess, the importance of, a backup quarterback, right?
Yeah.
We need that bird to quiet himself down a little bit.
Pretty active.
Yeah.
He's a bird whispering things in my ear. Like, what do we think about Hollywood Brown as a Chief?
I think that's a win. You put anybody with Patrick Mahomes, and Hollywood Brown is someone that's put up pretty decent numbers over the course of his career. He's been a disappointment for a first-round pick. But you have Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, Pacheco. I think they brought in a second tight end in free agency, if I'm not mistaken. And then you add in, now Marquise Brown taking the top off. And then they could still go wide receiver, right?
Oh, yeah.
They could add another wide receiver to that room. At the very least, I think Marquise Brown is a poor man's Tyreek Hill. He's got incredible speed, and he's good at catching the deep ball. And that's something the Chiefs have been lacking. Less speed, less so, but somebody that can actually catch the ball when it goes to them.
Okay.
I'd like the Bears adding Keenan Allen. The Bears have beefed up their defensive line. They beefed up their offensive line. You traded for DJ Moore last year. You added Keenan Allen to that wide receiver room. You have Cole Kmet and the other tight end. You're bringing in Caleb Williams into a really nice position, right?
Yeah.
To the point where, I don't think anybody is going to put up C.J. Stroud numbers. Those were absurd for a rookie. 5 interceptions. But I do think...
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have that kind of year either.
No. I mean, Peyton Manning threw 18 interceptions. Putting up 5 interceptions as a rookie, throwing the ball as often as he did is pretty freakish. But I think Caleb Williams is coming into a situation where he can put up easily 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. Now, I think he'll have more interceptions, but I think the Bears have done an incredible job of getting him everything you could possibly want, and especially a veteran like Keenan Allen to go with DJ Moore. And then they still have the 9th overall pick. That's a really nice position to be in. Now, granted, they're in the same position, the same division with the Lions and the really good young Green Bay Packers team. So, it's not exactly a home run, but I feel like they're putting them in about the best position you could possibly be in.
Interestingly enough, that division is within 5 years will only have one team playing outside.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah. Because it didn't seem like the fans of those areas really cared about being outside, right? That wasn't deterring people from going to.
They go ice fishing and everything else.
Yeah. So it was like they were going no matter what. I guess other big free agency moves. The Cowboys did nothing.
except lose an offensive lineman.
Yeah, they lost an offensive lineman and they lost Pollard, who really wasn't very good anyway.
No.
Which is, uh, kind of un-Dallas like, right? But at the same time,
I mean, they've got a lot of salary cap issues, so I mean, they got to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a.
They lost Gallup. Gallup's gone.
Yeah. They just cut him flat out.
Yeah. Well, they need money for C.D. Lamb and they need money for Dak.
And then obviously, I guess we got to talk about, we talked about Keenan Allen going to the Bears. Mike Williams is a free agent. So Justin Herbert and the Chargers currently don't really have. They have last year's first round pick, who was one of the most disappointing first round picks at wide receiver, and kind of nothing else.
Who's the pick last year?
The wide receiver out of TCU, who I'm blanking on at the moment, but
the guy was really fast. Yeah.
But I think just among rookies, he finished an average of like 15th in every category. And is it Quentin Johnson? That sounds right?
Might be.
Either way, he was pretty underwhelming, and now he's going to be presumably your number one wide receiver, because like other teams, you can move the money all you want, but at some point the bill comes due, and for the Chargers, the bill came due this year, and they kept Khalil Mack, they kept Bosa, reworked their deals, but had to get rid of both of their starting wide receivers. I know they went to Keenan Allen and asked him to take a pay cut, and he famously said no.
Now, I am rooting for the Chargers to get Brock Bowers. That's where I like to see Brock Bowers end up.
I could see that. He seems like a San Diego person.
Yeah, I like to see that one happen.
Yeah. And there's still you still have like I said, Mike Williams, Justin Simmons. You still have some exciting people out there on free agency. This is probably somewhat of a recency bias, along with the fact that our team, the Steelers, rarely do a lot in free agency, and they've done a lot this year. But this feels like a lot has really happened in this free agency, right?
And a lot happened fast.
And I think, like I said, a lot of it is, Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett. I know they're trying to trade Zach Wilson. Like, there's Justin Fields. Sam Darnold. Like, you have all these. That's the other team I'm kind of wondering when the other shoe is going to drop. Minnesota. They're sitting at, I think, the 12th pick. The only quarterback on their roster is Sam Darnold on a one-year deal. And I feel like...
They have 12 and like 29, right?
Yeah. And I feel like we've been down the Sam Darnold road enough at this point, right?
Yeah. You'd hope he learned a little bit as you're backing up at the 49ers.
Yeah, but we had the same hope of Mitch Trubisky after backing up on the Bills.
It's interesting to see how fast Mitch Trubisky got another deal.
Right back in Buffalo.
Yep.
Well, I think if he is your backup quarterback and he knows your system, and your starter is Josh Allen, I don't think you're planning on him seeing the field very often. But I mean, Trubisky's pretty athletic. He's got a big arm. I'm sure he's good playing the opposing quarterback in practice. And by all accounts, he's a likable person,
Yeah.
Like, he's a good teammate. And, I think if you're the Bills, it's just an easy, like, we're not going anywhere unless Josh Allen's on the field. So let's just bring him in and let him roll, because why not?
Well, it just shows you how important that you talked about that role of the number 2 quarterback, because they all got signed.
All of them.
I mean, Jimmy G went to the Rams. I mean, they all went somewhere.
And I am interested to see, and again, I'm only bringing up the Steelers again because for some reason they keep ending up as one of the teams in the Justin Jefferson trade, which I don't see happening. And I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but there's 8 wide receivers in this coming up draft with a first-round grade. There's 20 wide receivers, according to almost every scout in the world, that is a day 1 or day 2 pick. So you have 20 wide receivers coming in that people think could be potential day 1 starters. So I feel like receiver is slowly morphing into the running back position, where if you're Jefferson or Jamar Chase, you're going to get paid. But I feel like otherwise we're going to see a lot of guys do first contracts, maybe a franchise tag, and then they're moving on to younger guys. And
would you trade the number 20 pick for Justin Jefferson?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't or would?
I would not.
Okay.
I don't think that would be enough to get him. I think it would probably be at least 2 1s or a 1 and a 2. and then you have to pay him. And not that he's not, I think you could argue he's the best receiver in football right now. At the very least, if he's not in your top 3 or 4, then you're just not watching football, right?
Right.
But you're committing at least a first and a second, maybe 2 firsts, and then he's going to be $25 to $30 million a year on your cap starting right now. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if you're the Chiefs, yeah, right? Then maybe you give up the 32nd pick, and maybe next year's first. You have Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce, Marquise Brown, Rashid Rice, and you're an insane team with Mahomes. But if you're more on the cusp of building into it, and you've got a George Pickens, and you've got the 20th pick and 2/3 and a second round pick, I just feel like there's not the value isn't going to be there from a number standpoint.
Okay.
And again, like I said, I think there's a few teams that if they made that move, it would make sense. Like if I'm the Chargers, I guess you're in draft hell. You probably can't do anything about it anyway.
No.
Yeah. But like I said,
one last football question, and we'll move on. Saquon Barkley. I was surprised. I did not think that's where he would end up.
No. I am excited. Like I loved Saquon Barkley in college. And he seemed like he was basically Christian McCaffrey, right?
Yeah, kind of.
And you look at the way the 49ers use McCaffrey, and that's their offense is night and day when he's on the field and he's off the field. But you look at the Eagles. Jalen Hurts is a nice running quarterback. Whether it was Swift or any of the other guys they had in there, like it never felt like running was the reason they weren't, or offense was not their liability, right? It was their secondary, and they invested a lot in their defensive line, and their defensive line just didn't quite live up to the hype of being 2 first-round studs from Georgia.
Right.
I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah.
And I hope, like I said, I've always liked Barkley. He seems like a cool dude. I'd love to see him have a Christian McCaffrey-like breakout, where all of a sudden it's like a guy you didn't know could still pull it off, and now all of a sudden he's healthy for 16 games and putting up 2,200 total yards and 15 touchdowns, and and I'll root for him anytime they're not playing the other team from Pennsylvania.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to switch and go March Madness.
Well, it is March,
and I want to talk about now with the transfer portal and now with NIL. It just seems like you should probably expand the tournament. Maybe go to 84, have buys, do different things. But there are more teams that are going to get left out that probably should be in, and there's teams that got in that maybe should have got in, or maybe shouldn't have got in, or maybe just playing at the right time.
Yeah.
But I definitely think we need to review it, and I think we should add some teams. And I don't think there's anything wrong with giving the top 8 teams a bye, and then expanding the tournament that way if you want to cut down on the games, whatever. But I just definitely think there's a room to go. I was particularly excited by the North Carolina State team.
Yeah,
that was the 10 seed in the Atlantic Coast tournament, and here they go. And they beat North Carolina, they beat Duke, they beat Virginia, they beat everybody. And so I'm excited to see them in. They're going to be fun. I'm going to ask you to root for them. And you got a team like Long Beach State that agreed to. They and their coach had agreed to be terminated, and then he takes them to the tournament. So all these things that can happen, and just little things. Buzzer beaters, stupid calls, stupid plays, but fun stuff. I'd honestly have to say right now, I think UConn is the best team in the country. I thought it was Houston, but Iowa State just demolished Houston yesterday.
And Houston put up was it 41 points? Or was it 51?
Yeah.
It was a ridiculously low amount of points for the number 1 team.
Yeah, they beat them by 28.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't think that, I think it was like 58, 70-something and 50-something.
Yeah, it was a little shocking.
It was shocking. And then you had 3 of the chalk. The 3 of the 4 lost.
Yeah.
They're the ones that still been there. Once Purdue lost. But Purdue is always, the Big Ten teams are always that way. I'm not a Big Ten fan. I think they're consistently overrated. So I don't expect Zach Edey and Purdue to do much anyhow. So
No.
They lost. Carolina lost. And Houston lost. The only one was UConn. And I definitely think UConn's the best team.
Yeah, and they've got the tradition. I mean, it makes sense. So as of right now, if you're filling out your bracket, you have a UConn win it?
I'll have to see how it shakes out. But, I mean, if they're in the East, they're going to end up in Boston for the Sweet 16. That's pretty helpful.
It's very helpful.
So we'll see. But I don't see them, I definitely see them going to the Final Four.
Now, we were talking a little bit over the week about how you feel like NIL might eventually help bring back some of the excitement to college basketball, right? By keeping some of these guys in there a little bit longer.
Yeah, and that's what ESPN was talking about that this morning. I mean, because they get paid, they stay there longer, they play there longer. There's more of an affinity for them, and they develop their skill set a little bit better. So, yeah, I think in that way it's good. I know a lot of people don't like the pay for play, and they don't like the idea of them being employees, but it's 2024. It's not 1904.
Yeah.
And you've got to evolve. You've got to look forward. You've got to see what's going to happen. On the women's side, South Carolina's held off some teams. They've had some close games. I think it's helped them. They have an incredibly deep team. Stanford's got a nice team, but I don't think they're as hard, they're not as tough as either LSU or South Carolina. I like UConn, but again, they're not as tough. I mean, on the women's side, you got to have a toughness. And the only teams I see that have a toughness are South Carolina and LSU.
Yeah.
They're just tough. They're just rough. And they mix it up. And the other teams prefer to, take the shot and be a little bit more finesse and a little bit more open. I like Iowa. I like Caitlin Clark, but I don't see that team being a Final Four team. So we'll see where it goes.
Okay.
It's going to be fun, though.
Well, speaking of college and NIL and somebody that walked away, did you see any of Nick Saban's terrible congressional speech?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't like where the game is right now. And a lot of people don't. But, the game was really good to him under the rules that he had.
Yeah. And
he just didn't want to adjust to do this. And, again, those great coaches really feel they don't have to.
It's true. For someone that's made so much money off the backs of other people, and to not say he didn't do a great job coaching, though, but now that they're finally being compensated for him to whine about it, Congress feels a little bit, they're part of the reason he has Affleck commercials and everything else. And to sit next to Ted Cruz, of all people, and tell stories about his wife saying, "Why are we even doing this breakfast anymore?" It felt very performative and pretty phony.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe he's trying to push himself into politics now for the next stage of his life if he's not just going to retire. But I just really didn't like
He's gonna get paid a ridiculous amount of money to be a commentator.
Yeah.
He's got some good insight into football, so I think he'll be good at it. I think he'll be better than Belichick, but Belichick could surprise me.
Like I said, if anybody wants to go watch either Belichick talk about Bon Jovi or Ed Reed, you get to see a different side of Belichick that's pretty exciting. As Belichick is a giant Ed Reed and Bon Jovi fan. That's the Venn diagram of people that would also be interested in that sort of stuff. But he has a different, it's like watching a flower bloom when you watch him talk about those. There's like an excitement and a different life to his voice. It's not the normal, and then, Tom Brady, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I had fun watching the Players Championship with the 17th hole. In fact, the guy leading the tournament went to the 17th hole, and he put his ball 20 feet short into the water on the 17th hole. 20 feet. Or 20 yards, 20 yards. And that would be like a Bill Sutton shot. Not somebody I'd expect on the tour. And I was shocked. So, he's one stroke behind now. But that hole's interesting because, just because you hit the green doesn't mean the ball's going to stay on. Even though this year they kind of modified it a little bit. They put some grass near the edges of the hole to hold the balls, some of them from rolling in the water. So they made it a little bit easier. Yeah. But it's still, they were putting like 5 or 6 balls in there a day. And it's like something gets the crowd excited because it's a hole that shouldn't be that hard because it's 180 yards, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
and but it just gets in your head. And so when I saw Wyndham Clark 20 yards short, I mean, not even like the ones that were short, you see they hit the wood around the green and go in, or just be short of that, or bounce on the green and go in.
Yeah.
But not 20 yards short. That was really surprising. And that's one of the reasons it's watchable, because you can root for guys and just see them get in certain situations. It's a tough course.
Yeah. We haven't had a ton of movement in the NBA, but the Denver Nuggets are now tied for first in the West, and they're 9-1 since the All-Star break. And it seems like they're really ramping up their game, like they want the 1 seed. And they're just so much fun to watch. I love watching Denver play.
Well, Minnesota and Oklahoma City have not been there.
No.
And so they're going to have a tough time. They're going to make the playoffs, but they're going to have a tough time with a team like Denver. The Clippers looked a little bit more mortal than they've looked now.
Yeah, they're 5-5 in their last 10, just for reference. And
they're not looking. And this is the time of year that those older players get those injuries.
And you saw Kawhi left the game with back injury, with the back spasms. And
yep.
Kawhi Leonard when he is healthy, he is as good as anybody in the NBA, and he's proven it on multiple championship teams. But he has had quite a while since basically Toronto, where he cannot finish a season, and I think in the West,
I'm really enjoying watching 40-year-old LeBron though.
Yeah, I still feel like even though there's a lot of flaws on that team, I feel like if I'm not Denver and I'm looking at West, I still feel like Phoenix might be the scariest team, the team that I would want to play if I was one of the other top seeds. Durant's having an incredible season. Booker's really good. And Beal, when he's been on the floor, has been surprisingly competent. Mm-hmm. And they have I know you could argue that Dallas is offering the same things as Phoenix, and they're only separated by a game, so it's not like they're that much of a different team. But it is two absolute elite scorers that in a series, if those guys go off, and those are guys you're not stopping, right?
Right.
You're not stopping Luka, you're not stopping Kyrie, you're not stopping Booker, you're not stopping Durant. And those would be the two teams I'd worry about.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And then in the East, I mean, Boston is 9.5 games up on Milwaukee. And I just have been...
Boston's got to stay hungry, though.
Yeah, and
I know they can't let their feet off the gas. I mean, they can't coast, because when you coast and you get into the competitive games, you're not mentally there. We've seen it too many times.
Yeah, and they are 8-2 in their last 10, so they're not slowing down. But I mean, I don't even know if they can be. I mean, 9.5 games is a lot of games to make up to try and to catch up to them, and I just don't see it happening. The big thing in the East to watch now is that the 7th seed is the Philadelphia 76ers, and there is talk that Embiid could be back in a couple weeks and starting full contact, full regular basketball. And with somebody like Embiid, who usually can't make it through a season, and by the time he gets to the playoffs is hurt, if he can come back 90% of Embiid and start being Embiid again in the playoffs, that'd be a scary team to face.
But as a 7, they're going to play a 2. Yeah. And a 2 is probably going to be the Bucks.
Which, I know the Bucks are 7-3. They have a plus win differential. Their defense has been better. Much like Durant, Giannis is having a full-on MVP season that's kind of going under the radar because Jokic is there and they're first place. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think, maybe is my pick for MVP right now. He's putting up insane numbers, both offensively and defensively. He's clearly the best player on the team, tied for the best record in the West. And I do feel like voters like voting for somebody new. So I feel like if I was betting, I would probably bet on him to win too. Because, there's no Embiid. I don't feel like people want to vote for Luka. Jokic already has a couple, and they show that if he wins another MVP, he's in the rank. Not that I'm saying he doesn't deserve it, but you're putting him in the same category as like the Wilts and the Birds and the Magics, and he becomes in that 3-time MVP list. And you know how voters are. There's some voters that are going to be anti that, right?
Yeah, but you know what? He's a unique talent.
He is. And like I talked to you offline, like they just played the Spurs, and of course they beat the Spurs. But they were talking to Popovich, and Popovich was talking about, all the different players he has Wemby watched footage of for Wemby to emulate and to learn from. And they're like, would you have him watch Jokic? And he's like, there's no point. And they asked him to follow, they follow up, and he's like, Jokic is such a unique player, physically, mentally, that you can't really learn and do what Jokic does, which I thought was, from Popovich, that's probably the ultimate compliment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
And then we also have the surging Pelicans down here in New Orleans.
And they've been fun to watch.
Zion is starting to look very Zion-like.
Yeah, his highlights last night were incredible.
Yeah. And again, this is the giant caveat. He's only played I think 51% of the games he's been available for since he's been a Pelican. But his numbers are incredible, and his effort is incredible when he's on the floor.
Yeah.
It's not a question of talent or ability or effort. It's just a question of health and obviously, I guess diet. You just roll that right into health. But when he's on the floor, they are a different team, and there is very few people that can compete with Zion physically with his skill set. So,
no, I'm real happy for the people. The crowds look good. It looks like there's a buzz around the team. Are they fourth?
They're fifth, but they're a half game. No, they're a game behind the Clippers right now.
Yeah.
Well, they're two a game. Yeah. Well, maybe two, but yeah, they're right there. And then the Timberwolves.
That's a great story. Yeah. I'd love to see them and do well in the playoffs.
They could easily catch the Timberwolves and the Clippers right now, because the Timberwolves are sliding a little bit as well, especially with Towns gone. Yeah. And then if you get that 3 seed or that 4 seed, then you're playing Clippers, Phoenix, Sacramento, somebody like that, and it's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when it's crazy looking at the West versus the East. Like, if you told me Golden State was going to rally and make the conference finals, I would be doubtful, but I wouldn't be shocked, right?
No, I wouldn't be shocked.
And the same with the Lakers. Whereas you come to the East and you're like the Heat, the Bulls, the Hawks. As good as the Heat.
The West, the play-in spots in the West are meaningful. The play-in spots for the East are filling up chalk. That's all.
Exactly. It's still very exciting, though.
Yeah. How about some entertainment?
Entertainment. What did I watch? I have to call out. I don't know if you've seen the commercials, but there's a game on PlayStation and PC called Helldivers 2. I've made friends from around the world playing this game now. We're fake friends, but online friends that we just play, and it's a $40 game. It has almost no microtransactions, and you just get to play and have fun. And it's an incredible game if you enjoy gaming. But it's just
Is it a fantasy game or combat game?
It's a combat game. It's a little silly. Your characters will yell out "for democracy." It's sort of like Starship Troopers if it was an actual video game. It's you and a squad of up to 4 Helldivers, and you're put on these planets to fight robots and giant bugs. And you have objectives, and each mission is between 10 and 40 minutes. And you hop up online, you choose your loadout, and you just go play. But they had it was what I would say is this for all businesses, because everybody is chasing Fortnite, right? Every studio, every publisher wants a Fortnite, a game that just prints money. But by copying and pasting and trying to, do trends that are already happening, I just don't think you're going to get there most times. And the cool thing about Helldivers is they had a vision from Helldivers 1 to Helldivers 2, and that's the game they made, and it's become a global sensation. And maybe the key is, find somebody whose vision you believe in, put the resources behind it, and let it organically be what it is. Because I think if you're chasing something, trying to you steal somebody else, it's going to be tough to do. I don't know.
Agree. Okay. I got a couple. Well, I'm watching Shogun, so I've been through the first 3 or 4 episodes of Shogun. Outstanding. It's really, really good. Well done. Good story. And I'm not a big subtitle person, and I don't even realize there's subtitles.
That's awesome.
It's that good. That's all you can ever ask for.
Yeah.
Then last night we started Manhunt on Apple TV, which is about John Wilkes Booth and Lincoln.
Oh, yeah, that looked good.
The first episode was outstanding. I mean, it deals with really the depth of how that plot was. That there were so many layers to that assassination plot besides Lincoln. that if they would have all happened, it really would have changed the country. It's really good. The acting is good. And the acting's good. You know who plays Lincoln?
I don't.
Remember that show, The Adventures of New Christine?
Yeah.
All right. Remember the guy that played her brother?
Yeah.
That's Lincoln.
And he's good?
I thought he was okay. And when I put that together, he's overcome that. So it's good.
Okay.
But it would have been my choice for casting. But, it's a good story. The guy that plays Stanton is really good. The guy that played Booth is good. Really, so we watched episode 1 last night, and that was really good. But it's heavy, okay?
Yeah, I would assume.
It's heavy. It's not one of those things you want to watch and go to bed. So, Mom always looks for something lighter. So, what we watched after that was the perfect thing to watch after that, School of Rock.
Ooh, that is a classic movie.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I would have seen Jack Black on Broadway in that role.
Yeah, well, I've seen him twice in concert live, and he's just an incredibly energetic, enthusiastic performer. Both times I saw Tenacious D, once in Orlando and once down here in New Orleans, and he makes you feel like this performance. And again, I've seen a lot of live acts, from athletes to musical acts to plays, and like Jack Black, I think puts his heart into it as much as anybody I've ever seen.
Okay.
Like every performance is the most, like Your City that night is the most important performance of his career, and that's the vibe I get from him.
I've seen it 5 times, but it's entertaining every time I watch it.
Yeah, and that's a very family-friendly adult. Anybody can watch that and enjoy that movie.
Good movie to go to bed on.
Okay.
Any food?
Any food? No, I was going to have a food moment today. We bought double chocolate croissants, frozen ones from Trader Joe's.
Uh-huh.
We were going to make on a Sunday morning. Just for anybody that's thinking about buying them, you should read the instructions because you have to leave them out for 9 hours overnight before you can cook them. Which is, I'm sure maybe will make them delicious and better, but it's just one of those, like, you think you buy like a quick, this will be a nice Sunday morning treat, and then it's like, oh, this is a whole process.
This is complex.
Yeah, it's like you have to butter a bit. You're supposed to butter a parchment paper, set them out overnight, and let them rest for at least 9 hours before you cook them.
Well, you have to let us know how they turn out because anything that's that elaborate, they've got to be pretty good.
That's what I'm hoping. Now that I saw, like, I didn't have high expectations. I thought we were just going to throw them in the toaster oven or air fry or whatever this morning and just have, like, our lazy Sunday morning. And then it was like, oh, no, it's not what's happening. Good thing I actually read the instructions this time. So, yeah, other than that,
Oh, I do have something I want to address. I watched the Pirates-Orioles Futures game the other night. So those are 2 teams that have drafted really high in the last couple of years and have really gotten a lot of really good players.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the better. I thought it was the best idea that MLB's come up with since the Little League game. Playing at the Little League Park. This is really good.
I like that idea.
And I saw the Paul Skeens that the Pirates draft number 1. He pitched to 3 batters, was at a 102, struck out the first 2, including the other number 1 pick, Jackson Holliday from Stillwater. And the third guy just broke his bat. So he was dominant. And then they made a big trade to get Michael Taylor. I am juiced about my Pirates. Winning record for sure.
Yeah, I was almost afraid I was going to have to become a Pirate fan because I was like, my Penguins and my Steelers are both letting me down. But
no, the Pirates are going to be good this year.
It feels like
they're going to win 80-some games.
And then today, we have a giant storm happening as we speak. Hope people didn't hear that. But we plan on Peacock. We're going to start Apples Never Fall that I'll talk about next week.
Okay.
It looks like it's written by the same guy that wrote, or people that wrote Big Little Lies.
Mm-hmm.
And all we know is a girl goes missing, some family secrets and drama sort of stuff.
Ah, okay.
And it's got a lot of people you like. I know Allison Brie, and a bunch of people are in it. And I don't know. It looks intriguing.
Cool.
But we'll see.
Well, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that part. Is that today?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, happy St. Patrick's Day.
And we'll keep following the free agents. We'll keep following. Next week will be the March Madness will have opened up. We'll be talking about that and a little bit of baseball and maybe some predictions.
Yeah. So we'll talk to you next week.